Hey, ladies and gents, welcome to the Controlled Interest Gamecast, where we talk about video games and everything happening in the industry. I am your host, Jerrad Wyche. As always, I'm joined by Dominic Orlando.
Things are happening in the Forbidden Lands? The Forgotten Lands? What do we call it in Elden Ring? I don't even remember.
Uh,
The lands
now
between.
you have me questioning. Is it Forgotten or is it Forbidden?
I think it's the lands between. Maybe
There
I
you
was
go,
wrong.
yeah. I think you're thinking of Horizon, right? Forbidden West.
Ah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's gotta be it. But who, buddy? Things are happening. Big things, sad things, crazy things. Just a lot of events occurring. I basically won't say the specifics of any of them because that'll spoil things. But
Yeah, and we'll get to a little bit of it, obviously, at the end of the show. But yeah, I'm nearing the end of my journey in that game as well, so I'm interested to see where you're at. We have some news this week, not a whole lot of news. Last week's show was a pretty big one. Obviously, we went over all of the Xbox Game Studios in first party teams and what they're working on. Obviously, excluding Bethesda and Activision Blizzard, because obviously I don't want to make the show 3 hours long. But we had some fun going over that. A nice refresher for us to know what's going on there. Next time there's a slow news week, we'll probably end up doing PlayStation before we hop over to Bethesda. But yeah, speaking of Xbox in the Quickie News section, Xbox Game Studios Publishing goes east. So last week we had talked about Contraband, and there was another title. There was two Xbox Games Publishing titles. There was another one. It was a smaller one. It was a story-driven one. Remember? Uh,
um,
by the team that wanted to make games for people who liked Breaking Bad and Fargo. I can't remember the name
yeah.
of the game. But anyway, there's some new news for Xbox Game Studios, their publishing division. And that's in addition to revealing that several job openings for a publishing team in Japan, which is the first time since the Xbox 360 era, are available now to obviously apply for. Producer Matt Smith of Xbox Game Studios stated that they're already hard at work with top class developers in Japan that are working on, quote, large budget games. Now, this is interesting because not necessarily that they're working with good developers in Japan, but the large budget thing is interesting because
Yeah.
it has people wondering, they have the marketing deal with Elden Ring. Are they possibly doing what Sony did with Bloodborne and Demon Souls and trying to get a From Software exclusive on their platform, which would be really cool? Is it a different studio? Is it Sega? Is it, are we going to see Lost Odyssey 2, Blue Dragon 2? A lot of interesting things going on. Is there a partnership with Platinum Games again? Are we going back to the Scalebound hole? It's We've talked about how Xbox kind of needs to plant its foot and has been over the last 4 or 5 years in Japan again, with Phil Spencer doing a lot of that legwork. We saw the Yakuza series come over to Xbox Game Pass. We saw Kingdom Hearts come to Xbox, which is huge. We're still waiting on Final Fantasy VII Remake. Square, where is that? I've been waiting 2 years plus
So
for
weird.
that port. Yeah. Uh, PlayStation must have paid it big for it to remain exclusive, because even on the box, it had up for a year of exclusivity. So it's so odd that it hasn't come over yet. It's very
Yeah.
weird to me. Um, but are you surprised by this, that they're kind of finally cementing like a Japanese division of Xbox Games Studios publishing? And is there anything you think would be cool to see, like a From Software partnership?
I mean, it makes sense because that's always been like I feel like they've been trying to do this for a long time, right? Less successfully in past decades, I guess. But it seems like Phil is at least doing putting in more of an effort, more of an earnest, sincere effort to make it happen. And even then, that's tough to do, right? It's kind of a rigid thing, I guess, to break into an entirely new market like that. But yeah, generally, you don't necessarily like want to see things go exclusive. I wouldn't. I'm thinking about From Software specifically, but I think if it's as some, I think it makes more sense for something to be revived or something that's been down for a little while to then use like the exclusivity to kind of pull it back up, kind of a thing, and bring it back to prominence. So maybe, yeah, maybe something Sega has. We've talked about not Kojima, but Konami. Like maybe there's something there that Xbox can partner with them to bring back. That sort of stuff is, I think, like maybe where there's a cooler opportunity, more so than what they could end up doing with like a From Software. Unless again, it still could be something that like wouldn't have happened otherwise. Then that's always cool. Kind of like a Sony Spider-Man. If there's something that they can, that's more not original in that sense because that's existing IP, but something that they can make happen that wasn't otherwise.
Yeah, I guess the only thing for me is the reason I wouldn't feel too bad about it being an exclusive game with From is because they've already done exclusive games with PlayStation. So it's not like it's a studio that's only ever done third-party games where they're available everywhere. And it's a bit spiteful on my end, not a fanboy thing, but it's like, if they can get a couple of exclusive games, I'm fine with Xbox getting one. Like, you know what I mean? From the financial aspect too, sure, Elden Ring is selling great and all of that, but these developers also get a lot more money from these deals than they do from their, from like a Bandai Namco for From Software, right? They probably got a lot more money working with PlayStation than they did there. At least you would assume, anyways. Yeah, so I'm fine with that. The thing is, funny you mentioned Kojima earlier this year. Remember, there was that rumor that his next game is cloud-based, and he wanted to work with Google Stadia first, and that fell through. So then he went to Microsoft, and the rumor is that he's going to reveal an exclusive Xbox title, and that would be a top-class developer and a large-budget game, because that's one thing for Kojima. As good as his games are, they're known for exceeding the budgets that they're initially marked with. So that's another potential there.
And that would be exactly the type of thing I'm talking about, of like, that project probably doesn't happen otherwise, right? So yeah, Stadia doesn't work out. Sony doesn't really have, probably as much infrastructure or kind of a thing to make that happen.
Well, Sony now is using Microsoft's cloud technology, remember?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or they just, maybe he pitched Sony and they just weren't into it. Is possible too. So if it's making something happen that otherwise wouldn't have, then that's always cool. Assuming it's going to be good too. That's kind of like the obvious what if, but
yeah. I mean, because it's cloud based, and Kojima tends to do his research on this stuff. That's why it seemed like the fact that he went to Google Stadia first seems like he kind of was trying to go for the best cloud based technology and not necessarily somebody he's worked with before, obviously. Mm-hmm. So to me, I don't even know if he pitched his project to PlayStation at all. He probably started with Google Stadia, then went to Microsoft, and Microsoft agreed to it. Whereas we still don't know what if he pitched a different project that wasn't cloud-based to Sony, because we've heard a little bit of rumblings about the whole Death Stranding thing not going over maybe as well as everyone assumed it would. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm just interested to see what these projects are, because that is one thing, like, maybe it's Atlas too. Maybe, there's deals with PlayStation where they can't necessarily, Atlas can't put Persona on Xbox consoles, but maybe Xbox is like, well, then just make us our own Persona. You know what I mean? Make us something that's original to Xbox, that's in the same vein, but is wholly unique for us. Maybe that's the case. Who knows? Next up, we have a God of War Ragnarok update. So over on April 20th, Cory Barlog, who isn't the director of God of War Ragnarok, he's kind of a consulting producer. He posted a video to their official Twitter for Sony Santa Monica, where he basically thanked the fans for their support, and he said, quote, "Everyone is hard at work. We are perfectionists. It's not ready to be shown. But the moment we have something ready to share, we'll be sharing it with you. Please hold tight." And this was in reference to him saying, God of War Ragnarok. It's the elephant in the room. What's going on? And this isn't necessarily newsworthy. I wanted to point this out because we were talking about before we started the show that a lot of the verbiage he's using here is like, hey, don't be worried or surprised if there's a delay here, because obviously it's still slated for this year, but him saying we're perfectionists to me is like, hey, we're going to work on this game until it's what we want to release. We're not going to release it because of a deadline. Kind of looking through those words. He said we're not going to show it until it's ready to be shown. Same thing. And please hold tight too. Like, a lot of that verbiage aren't things you hear from somebody who's set to release a game in the next couple of months. It doesn't seem like there's not that there's not confidence in the product itself, but it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of confidence in Cory that the team is going to be able to get the game to where they want it to be by the time this year ends. What do you think about it? You watched it before we started recording.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily a whole lot of information in that. It was just a lot of it was the 4-year anniversary of God of War 2018, so it was a lot of, thank yous for supporting that game and stuff. But then you're kind of right. It isn't exactly like inspire confidence in Ragnarok coming out this year. And just in general, with that game supposed to come out in 2022, and yeah, we don't have a specific date yet. We've only seen one, gameplay trailer. If with each day that passes, we're now into mid-April. With each day that passes, it becomes that much less likely that this game hits this year, right?
Yeah.
Like each day that passes that we don't get a proper date and see more of it. That is so. Still possible, but every day that passes, the odds get slightly slimmer and slimmer and slimmer. So, yeah, I'm starting to get nervous because it's one of my fantasy critic picks too, of course.
Well, and it's one of those things where people could argue like, why did he even have to mention the game if it was celebrating the 4-year anniversary of the first one? And that's the thing, is that there was going to be all of the replies to that video regardless were going to be, can we hear more about Ragnarok? What's going on with Ragnarok? So he had to address it somehow. The thing to me is that not only did he address it, the way he brought it up, he's like, let's talk about the elephant in the room. And then he had all of this specific verbiage he went to. Whereas he could have just been like, hey, we're hard at work at God of War Ragnarok. You guys will see it when you see it. But he went on a little bit more longer than I thought he would on it. So I just thought it was interesting. Who knows? The game could still come out this year, but I don't know. It feels to me like it's like, hey, caution people that it might not be the case. But we'll see. Next up, it turns out, Dom, I know this might come as a shocker. People love Lego and they love Star Wars. So when you combine those two things together, you have something great. So Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga has actually sold 3.2 million units worldwide in its first 2 weeks of release, surpassing sales of all previous Lego console game launches, as well as sales records across every platform and region. This was reported by WB Games, the publisher. Not too surprising. I purchased it at launch. I've been dabbling with it as I'm focusing on Elden Ring. You've talked about wanting to get it. You kind of have that FOMO itch of wanting to play because obviously you're a huge Star Wars guy. 3.2 million units is huge, and I wonder, I want to know first if you're going to end up, when you think you'll end up getting this game, and two, do you think maybe this is the path for Lego games moving forward, where instead of the individual releases of like certain movies, maybe they just work on these collection projects that are a lot more meatier in the content, maybe take a little bit longer to develop, but they might see the financial return on the back end?
No, I don't know, because these are really good sales, but I think it'll be interesting. Like this is what they needed. This is what they absolutely needed. Like this was 4th and 10, right? And they got exactly 10 yards, maybe a little bit more. I don't know all their budgets and stuff, but this game had many delays and apparently a lot of development problems. And
yeah,
they went through tons and tons of crunch, and a lot of people that work there are very unhappy. And they have bonuses that are very regressive. But apparently a lot of bonuses in general, which are good based on sales. So it's good that people are going to get rewarded, but hopefully it's done equitably. But I don't think that how they did this, from the reports we've read, is sustainable whatsoever. So I'm more like they probably need to rethink their entire work process of how the types of projects they're going to go into. And this, I don't know, from what we've read, I don't know if this is quite it. Maybe if the sales were far surpassing what they had hoped for, even with all the delays and extra development costs, maybe they'll go for something like this. Maybe it's a Harry Potter collection next or whatever else, right? But I don't know. From what we've read, and I'm super excited to play this. It probably won't be too long. I think this is what I can see myself getting into next after Elden Ring. Frankly, that'd be a good palate cleanser, a good change of pace. But so I'm super excited for it. But yeah, I don't feel super confident in exactly how this came to be.
Yeah, and to me, I guess my hopes are that new leadership would fix all of the work-related issues, and then when it comes from the delays and stuff, we've heard that Star Wars can be a little bit difficult to work with. Not saying that they're wholly responsible for the delays, but maybe because they know the scope of the project now and they'll have new leadership and stuff. I don't know. I'm just assuming that maybe a lot of that stuff will be corrected. I guess my question wasn't so much on the sustainability, but what Lego wants to do, because I don't know if, remove the worker stuff, which is important, but in terms of just sales, I don't know if it's more financially beneficial for them to release a Lego game every year and get a fraction of the sales, or to just develop a bigger Lego game over the course of 3 years. Maybe not a collection, but maybe a single game, right? And then try to do it that way. I guess that's more what my question was focused on, is the development cycle, maybe not the scope of the specific game, but who knows? We'll see. But yeah, honestly, before you mentioned, I completely forgot about all of those reports. But yeah, that was like the big thing, is when it got delayed. It's like, well, here's why it got delayed. I don't know if it was VGC or somebody that did that report, kind of surfacing what was going on over there at TT Games.
And they have had a lot of change in leadership, I think, throughout that. So I don't know where they sit now with some of those issues, but I guess I'd be curious, because it's the Madden model, right, versus the Elder Scrolls model, or whatever.
Well, I wouldn't even compare it to Madden. I think it's more work between annual releases than Madden, because people joke that Madden's just a roster update, which it's a little bit more than that, but I think there's more differentiation between two annual Lego titles than Madden 20 and Madden 21,
It's more like the Call of Duty model, I guess. But
yeah, I guess, yeah.
They're switching studios every year.
Exactly.
It just appears like it's the same studio, but that's a tough one too. Yeah, they got their work cut out for them. TT Games, man, like, I know, like, I don't play a lot of these Lego games and stuff, but they put out like such high volume of games that all are like of a pretty decent quality, at least, right? They're always like at least mediocre to good. And there's so many Lego games.
And great, Lego City Undercover, right, is beloved by everyone. Yeah. We'll see what happens
over there.
Speaking of Star Wars, we have another Star Wars announcement. This one a lot more positive. I guess depending on your perspective, it's like a phoenix rising from the ashes. So Amy Hennig is working on Star Wars again. This is via StarWars.com. The official Star Wars website announced this week that Skydance New Media, led by industry vets including the decorated and respected Amy Hennig, which we love here at Controlled Interest, has formed a collaboration with Lucasfilm Games to, quote, develop and produce a narrative-driven action-adventure game featuring an original story in the Star Wars galaxy. Boy, does that description sound familiar, Dom, for something Amy Hennig is working on. The cool thing is, Amy Hennig actually, in response to this, she tweeted the link to the story on StarWars.com, and did you see her quote tweet?
I did not.
She just said, "Never tell me the odds," which is obviously the famous Han Solo quote, which also is interesting based on what we assume this game will be, right? Because of what the last Star Wars game she was making was based on, with that specific quote from a specific person. I wanted to add, too, that Jeff Grubb attached a quote to this as well. So he said, so Amy Hennig is getting to make her Star Wars game. Lucasfilm Games always was desperate for the kind of game she wanted to make, but EA knew it would be difficult to pull off. So basically, this is cool because this is insight, obviously Jeff Grubb from GamesBeat, that Lucasfilm, I'm assuming, loved what she was making. Gary Whitta, writer of Rogue One and Book of Eli, said that he had seen the game and that it was incredible. And it was more so EA that kind of pulled the plug, but Lucasfilm was excited to see that game come to fruition. And something I mentioned to you, Dom, in Discord when this came up is, I think they saw the outcry of fans after this report surfaced by Jason Schreier. Remember that big extensive report he did about Project Ragtag? And I bet you Lucasfilm, not only because they knew what the game was and they were excited about it, they're like, yeah, we were right. The fans wanted to see this too. Let's find somebody to work on it. Let's just have her do it. The cool thing here is that this is the second Disney-owned property Skydance New Media has partnered with. If you forgot, it announced in October of 2021 that the studio would, quote, develop a narrative-driven blockbuster action-adventure game featuring a completely original story and take on the Marvel Universe. So this is cool. Amy Hennig, her studio is both working on a Star Wars game and a Marvel game, which I'm both super excited for. I know for you, Dom, the words narrative-driven blockbuster adventure game is huge to you because there's no mention of multiplayer there. It's from somebody who you've enjoyed a lot of her games, and I think she's a phenomenal creative. So I guess what I wanted to post to both of us is, so though this new Star Wars game from her and people at Skydance is going to be different from Project Ragtag, the canceled Bounty Hunter adventure game by Electronic Arts, I guess, what do you want to see from that project translated over? And I guess I'll start. And to me, it's the two things I want to mention first kind of go hand in hand, but it's based on what the game will be, which we don't know yet, is that if it's a game where you create your own character, Dom, we've mentioned this before, let me create a non-human character in Star Wars, please. Like, I'm tired of just playing as humans in Star Wars. Let me play as one of the weird alien races for once. But if it isn't a create your own character and it's their own story, sure, I would love it to be a non-human. But if they want to do a human character, make sure that a lot of the team, because I'm assuming based on how she likes to do things, Amy Hennig's projects are very character-driven, and she likes to have a group of people interact with one another, and those relationships are kind of the core of her storytelling. Make sure that a bunch of people in the group are also not human. You know what I mean? One of the coolest parts of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is, man, I forget his name. The pilot, what's his name? Grungus, Fungal. What's his name?
Oh, shoot, I can't remember. I can see him.
Yeah,
Furry little guy.
but a lot of the characters in that game are non-human. Obviously, one of the pivotal characters towards the end of the game is non-human, and that's really cool to me because the last thing I need to worry about in a sci-fi world is other humans. So that's cool. But I guess for you, obviously we saw that teaser image. I don't know if you remember it. I had to bring it up earlier when I was writing the story of the footage of the bounty hunter walking out into the it a
Tatooine?
Yeah, Tatooine. I guess what do you want to see translated over? Maybe not specifically from Project Ragtag in terms of what it looked like, but maybe what Amy Hennig has done previously. Like, what do you want to see?
I mean, it's interesting because I feel like a lot of how I'd answer that question is what we already got with Fallen Order.
Yeah.
So I think, like, take the parts about Fallen Order that I think were weakest were in the platforming. There's some technical issues, I guess, but
the map. The map was horrible.
Yeah, it was hard to navigate a little bit with that map, but if we can get, the platforming of an Uncharted game, but even better, courtesy of Amy Hennig, then and less, in place of the good lightsaber combat that we had in Fallen Order, and and focus more on a non-Jedi type character, that'd be great too. So I think like a slightly different, kind of like a lot like Fallen Order, but more the gameplay focused on, third person gunplay and platforming, but also non-Jedi character would be cool. And then obviously narrative driven. And then everything you were saying, like strong cast of characters, like their relationships are what are driving the narrative. All that kind of stuff is what I'm really looking forward to with this. But more than anything for me, like I just want new characters and I want it to be as far away from the core timeline as possible. Even if it's in the core timeline, I just don't want it to like butt up against it entirely. Like,
well, that's an interesting thing, right?
In and out of canon.
Is that Quantic Dreams game, if it ever comes to fruition, is set in the High Republic? Do you think maybe with this obviously being a new project and Amy Hennig having more creative control of when the game can take place, I wonder if she tackles High Republic, right? That'd be really cool. Like, we don't really have an idea of what bounty hunters in that time period are like, right?
Yeah, and I've not looked into really any High Republic stuff yet. I've been excited to like get started on that.
Yeah.
A couple books that are supposed to be pretty cool, but I know very little about that era, so it's kind of exciting. But from what I understand, it's still the Republic is in charge. It's not the era of the Sith and things like that. So I would imagine that bounty hunter, it's not like the original trilogy where there's bounty hunters all over the place, and then afterwards when there's less law and order, this I assume bounty hunters would be more rare and kind of like more criminal, less accepted in that sense. So that could be interesting too. Yeah, I'm super excited for this. I'm really glad that she's getting to do this, and that hearing that Lucasfilm specifically is excited about it is kind of cool too. So I can't wait to see whatever this is.
Another gameplay thing I'd love is stealth based stuff. Because there was a little bit of that in Fallen Order, but not like to any real extent. And I want melee combat in a Star Wars game that isn't reliant on a lightsaber. Like fisticuffs melee combat would also be really cool too.
Yeah.
Because if you're a bounty hunter and you're getting into down and dirty brawls, that's another thing. Give me a bar fight. I want a bar fight. I want to be able to handle my business. Yeah. It's exciting. You're obviously a much bigger Star Wars fan than me, and I would say I'm probably the bigger Marvel fan of us two. So it's cool that we're both getting projects from Amy Hennig because I'm so confident in her ability to tell stories. The one thing for me is that I want it to be a quote-unquote Star Wars Uncharted game. I just hope the shooting is better than in Uncharted games because to me that's kind of the weakness of that series. I didn't play 4, so I don't know how much better it got, but I did dabble with 1 and 2. I never beat those games, and I didn't like it at all in those games. And I know, looking at the internet, generally that's the criticism, is that the shooting is probably the weakest point of the gameplay because the set piece moments are so good, the traversal is really good. So we'll see. That's pretty much it. I guess before we head out, we can mention our, Elden Ring update. We're both heading towards the end. So I am level 116, 70 hours
Dang.
in. Did I pass you?
No, but you're gaining ground for sure.
Yeah, because last week you were, 110 and I was 90, I think.
Mhm.
So,
So now I'm up to like 123. So you're catching me.
well, like you said, it's hard. Levels get obviously higher in terms of rune cost, so it's gonna I'm gonna meet you there. It's kind of even out. Um, I'm trying to think about how I can mention things without spoiling anything. So, I ended up finding the Rot Swamp, which is an optional area in the game, which is,
Oh, you just now did that. Okay.
yeah. I had
The
not
Lake of Rot.
found it before, yeah. And then obviously that ends up leading to the fight with the Astrid of the. He has a very long name, but it's basically one of the large mosquito bosses in a very Renala like boss arena. That was cool. He's an optional boss, but you get an achievement or trophy for beating him. And then, in terms of the main story, I got to the top of the castle and beat the boss there. That is basically somebody we've seen before. Obviously, I'm being vague for spoiler purposes. You've done that already, right?
You're talking about in Landell.
Yeah. You fight somebody that you fought earlier in the game.
Hmm.
New name, obviously, but basically the same person.
Okay,
Um,
that was confusing me because I was like, yeah, oh, it's this guy again. But that's not his name. But so I didn't really know what to think about that, I guess. But
yeah, I have a partial understanding of it, but I'm gonna need to watch a couple of Vata video vids when I'm done with Elden Ring to kind of get
yeah.
the real gist of it. So I'm currently on my way up the Valley of the Giants or whatever it's called.
Hmm.
Making my way through there. I've been doing some side stuff in other areas too, but yeah, I'm at a place now where, like, I think I'm nearing the end of the game, I assume. But I want to go back and maybe dabble with some of the side quests of characters. One thing I realized, and this isn't really a spoiler because I don't know if I messed up his quest or not, and there's an alternate path, but do you remember weeks ago when I was like, hey, Dom, do you remember meeting that one NPC under the bridge near Patch's cave by the jellyfish?
Yeah.
His
With
name's
the
like
hat,
Boris, the finger hunter.
samurai. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when you get to the Valley of the Giants, I'm pretty sure you had the same interaction,
Mhm.
right? Where he's standing there.
Yeah,
Well, it's not
and
him, technically.
it's exactly
Yeah.
that was bizarre because you show up and he's like, we're spoiling this a little bit, but yeah, he's like, you must recognize me from my vessel, but I am not the same person or whatever. I'm like, what happened
Yeah,
to
he
that
gifted
guy?
me this body or whatever. So like
Yeah.
I haven't looked into it because obviously I'm trying to avoid as much as I can before I finish the game, but I'm curious to know if that's all his quest line is or if there's something you missed that you can trigger because he was a cool character. Just the idea of somebody who's out there obviously hunting the fingers um is neat. Which is when you learn about that whole thing of like they were the hand, but then they split up, and the reason they're called the fingers is because three of them went one way and two of them went the other way, and all that stuff. Um, yeah, I don't have much else to add. I guess what I want to hear from you most of all is how far in the main storyline you are in relation to me. Like, have you gone through the Valley of the Giants? Are you close to the final boss? All of that stuff, and obviously give me your level and
Yeah.
playtime update.
So I'm up to like level 123. I think I'm 80 some hours now, something like that. But yeah, I've worked through that whole snowy area with the giants. Um, and towards the end of it is where something substantial happens. Um, but then even more continues, and I'm onto a new area, even still. And now it's clear to me that even where I'm at, there's another area close by. I'm not trying to get there yet, but there's just some stuff I got to explore to figure that out. So as much as I have also been feeling like getting close to the end, there's also things that I'm wondering like, well, I'm not that close to the end, because one, that guy in the round table hold, I know that there's 3 more like mainline bosses that I've not even gotten to yet, basically.
That's the weird thing, right? Is that there's the Dung Eater, who the only time I think either of us have interacted with him is he's a red invading spirit in the Round Table Hold, like
Yeah.
sitting in the back. And then the confusing thing to me was Gold Mask. The only mention I've heard of that name is the thing pointing at the sun that your monk
that's
guy
him.
follows. But the weird thing is that in the opening video, he's like huge.
I don't even remember. Okay.
He's like
That's
slithering
interesting.
around, and he's just like a normal human. So I wonder if him obviously worshiping the Erd tree is going to be the reason he turns into a boss. But do you have the monk following him as well? Like whenever you run into him, is the monk with him? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because Goldmask himself doesn't even say anything. He's just standing there stationary, pointing, or whatever. Almost.
Well,
doing
there's
like
actually
one of
4
those
bosses, right? Well,
things.
maybe it'd be a spoiler for you, but there's the woman, the widow or whatever her name is, and then there's
like Melania, or Melina, and then Michaela. But then he also mentions Ranny. It sounds weird saying
Oh,
Ronnie,
you're
'cause it's
talking
like
about
R-O-N-N-Y.
okay, sorry. You're talking about the people that the guy inside of Round Table Hold talks about.
Yeah,
I'm talking about at the beginning of Elden Ring when they show the people.
the cinematic.
Yeah, because they show Gold Mask, they show Dung Eater, they show the wolf guy with like a wolf on his shoulder. I don't remember his name.
Shit, I just
He's like a
watched that
silver
cinematic
wolf on his
again.
shoulder. The widower, the woman at the bedside of the king, and then the guy buried with all of the silver coins or whatever all over him. And to me,
I gotta watch that again. None of that
yeah,
even sounds familiar. Hardly.
my assumption is in all of the From games, those are the boss. They're like, oh, here are the guys you have to defeat, or the bosses you have to defeat to win the game, right? Whereas in Elden Ring, I don't think that's the case. I don't know if we end up fighting any of those people, and all of the bosses are the ones like you were mentioning that the guy at the Round Table Hold talks about. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was a bit confused.
Yeah, and that's just how it goes. Like, I'm getting a lot of story, more so than like Dark Souls and maybe similar to Bloodborne. Sekiro was a little more on the nose with the storytelling. But even though I am getting a lot of story out of Elden Ring, there's still a lot I don't know exactly what's going on. Even though, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, that big events are happening, I don't necessarily understand exactly the implications of all of them. But I look forward to catching up on all the lore and exactly what's happening that I kind of went over my head. But I wanted to ask you if you ended up going back to the Volcano Manor area at all.
So I went to Volcano Manor. I did all of the bounty hunts for the people.
You did that shit.
Yeah. Then I
was
fought.
having fun with that for some reason. I was like, "Ooh, I'm just out here assassinating people." For these
Yeah, they weren't too
people.
difficult at all. They're actually kind of easy, and maybe it's because you're supposed to get to
Mhm.
Volcano Manor earlier. Also found out you don't have to beat the Comet Bull thing to get to Volcano Manor.
Okay, you found another.
You
way.
can just like run up that ramp and go over it. I ended up beating him and then seeing that you could do that, which was unfortunate, but
so you could just run past him. Basically.
yeah. The Volcano Manor boss, don't want to spoil it for people, is the most awkward one, I think, and this might be a bit, hyperbolic. I think it's poorly designed in terms of if you're not a magic user in Elden Ring, it's like almost impossible to fight that second phase of that boss.
Yeah. So did you use the weapon they give you?
No, I didn't use the weapon.
Yeah, that's why it's a gimmick boss. So yeah.
Oh, okay. So
That's
I
probably why
actually
you had so much trouble.
I couldn't. You can't touch them because they have like a magma pool under them. So I ended up having to summon a random person that I hoped would have magic because I just couldn't. I couldn't fight them. And I assumed it might be a gimmick boss because normally that's what happens when there's like an item at the beginning of a boss fight, kind of like with the giant in Dark Souls 3, Yorm.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I didn't try that. So there's also the secret area in Volcano Manor. Did you do all of that stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the girl Raya, her whole thing. Was weird.
Raya.
Oh, you didn't run into her or do any of that?
I don't know who you're talking. I completed the whole area. like even down through the houses and through that other castle and everything, and killed the Godskin Pillar. I don't know who you're talking about.
So like in one of the rooms in the proper manner, like when you first enter, there's all those bedrooms, and there's a girl in one of them.
So her name isn't Raya. You have an idea of maybe what her name is?
It's definitely like RYA. That's definitely her name. It's short for something else too, but
Oh, Rhea. Raya to me
Rhea.
is Raya, which is Raya
Okay.
Lucaria. Yeah, so I talked to her in that room, and also the
Mhm.
like Onion Knight type dude, but I didn't
Yeah.
find her anywhere else in Volcano Manor.
And nothing interesting happened with her. If you know, you'll know.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, she has a whole weird thing going on. That was whoa. But
Well, where's the next area you run into her?
it's all in there. It's all in the manor and in that village area. It's all within that.
But you don't remember the second area after she leaves like that room? I'm gonna look it up, I guess. Yeah, because I
you
went through
just
that
look
whole area and I didn't run into her at all.
I mean, so the second place you find her is like it's kind of hidden, sort of. It would be tough. It's tougher to find, but there's another part of the story, I guess. That she's in the same spot. She's in that same room, but something happens to her. You find something out about her, and it's weird.
Interesting. I'm reading about it. Hold on.
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, there was a Volcano Manor which I went through. What was the other thing you were gonna say? Because you had a couple of points.
Oh, and then did you ever run into our boy Alexander the Pot anywhere in the Gelnir Mountain area?
I have not found him after the Radon boss fight. No.
Okay, look around the mountain, and you'll find him. And you gotta kind of like really explore around that outer mountain area.
Is it
And
the area before the bonfire to get up to the crater cow, or is it the other mount area that's like the back pathway?
it's more like the back pathway, yeah.
Okay. Like
Yeah.
past
But you'll
him,
find
like around, or are you talking about the other way where it's like it's the other side of the bridge kind of area?
yeah, I think it's the other side of that bridge.
Okay.
It might take some doing. I don't know exactly how I got there, but you find him, and it's just like a hilarious encounter. But I won't spoil it. You'll appreciate it. He's the man. That's all.
Hell yeah. That's the thing
Um,
too that like we were talking about in a previous episode how there's so many NPCs, which is really cool, but the downside to that is there's too many NPCs to like do all of their side quests, and like you're so focused on so many things that like you kind of lose track of
miss it.
them, you know.
Yeah. That's why I always encourage like some amount of looking stuff up, or at least kind of like we do, where like just directing people like, well, you should go check that area out and go see what you find, because otherwise you could miss out on fun stuff. So it's kind of
Okay. This
cuts
is the
both
bummer
ways.
though of looking stuff up, because reading where she's at next in the manor kind of spoiled something about her, which I it would have been cool to see. But
That's what
yeah,
I was talking about. Yeah,
yeah.
that was wild. I was like, oh, okay, that's what's
And when I
going
saw
on
those
here.
enemies pop up, I was like, "Oh, Sense Fortress, great." That's what
Yeah,
it gave me the vibe
exactly.
of. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else you wanted to ask me in regards to Elden Ring?
Oh, I don't think so.
Do you think we both finish it in the next couple of weeks?
I figure I have 1 or 2 more weeks. Yeah, at least for like the main story.
Yeah.
I'll probably keep playing for a bit after that, but I gotta be getting close. I just gotta be.
Well, I know that there's like other areas that are optional that you don't. I mean, it's a From game where you don't have to necessarily do them. Because I remember I hopped into a stream of somebody and they were like, "I beat the game, but I'm hopping in to explore this area I hadn't before." And obviously, I ditched the stream before I got it spoiled. But yeah, we'll see how that ends up playing out. Because I'm not getting burnt out on Elden Ring, but I am getting to the point where like I kind of want to play. It's not that I don't want to play Elden Ring anymore, but I also want to play other stuff too. If that makes sense. So
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah, I might kind of sprint to the finish line depending, but we'll see. In terms of like trophies, how is that going for you? Is it because I've heard this game is pretty easy to platinum or complete in relation to other From games.
So I did. That is one thing I have to do. It's not easy to platinum. Certainly not at all, because you got to play through the game 3 times.
Interesting.
Unless you basically hide away a save right before the end of the game, come back and get the other endings. That's kind of the
Okay.
thing. So I try basically, try to get as little information as I can to make sure I do, just the right thing. And it's simple, and it's easier in this game because there's not as much lead up to get the different endings of quests that you have to do. There's basically one main quest you have to work on, but then at the end it's just kind of a choice that you get to, kind of like Dark Souls 1 where you just like
What's the main quest? Is it Ronnie's quest?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I assumed.
You're basically done with because you went and beat that mosquito guy. So, did you jump in that what's it called? The thing you get buried in. What do people get buried in?
Yeah, you go in the casket that takes you to that fight, and then behind him is a wall that's sealed off that I can't get through.
Okay.
So I think I'm gonna go and look at the Ronnie quest line to see what I need to do next. Because the last thing I did is find her doll. Is the last thing I can remember.
Yeah, I forgot. There's one other thing you got to do, and you go past that. That wall you can't get past, and then it takes you somewhere else.
Cool.
You'll find it.
What else is there to say? I don't think anything else. Getting closer and closer to the middle of the year. So obviously we're getting closer to the E3-ish announcements. I don't even know. Summer Game Fest, I guess, is what we're gonna label it this year for the Jeff Keighley Awards or reveals. In terms of the Critics League, it's pretty interesting. Poor Chris, friend of the show, Topher Noons, kind of the third chair, is having a rough go of it. Me and you, it's interesting because you have way more games that have released, but I think on a per score, I might have a slightly higher average thanks to Elden Ring. The thing that killed me, I mean, it didn't kill me, but my two counter picks both scored above 70. So I got negative 13 points because of that. Because Ghostwire Tokyo got me -7. Dying Light got me -6. Your counter picks, obviously, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. You got 0 because that was confirmed not coming out this year. So that was good. And then a Plague Tale Requiem, which we don't know yet. What could bite you could also be a 0. Who knows? I also forgot that we have to pick up a third counter pick before the end of the year. So that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Upcoming in terms of our releases, I have Nintendo Switch Sports, which the preview seemed like it's going to score pretty well. I also have Salt and Sacrifice, which is coming out in like a couple of weeks. I also picked up The Quarry, which I hope is good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Your next game is Mario Strikers Battle League, and then Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes. So we'll see what happens there. You're currently 100 points with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games. You're averaging a little over 10 point. Well, no. Yeah, like 10.1 points a game, kind of. And I am at 60 with 4 games. So.
Yeah, I have so much that is already out and already scored. I'm glad that I actually ended up getting 2 spots back. And I'm just sitting on those, and we both have some money back, so I'm sure that there's going to be some announcements, this summer of stuff that's coming out this year that we can have a little bidding wars on.
Well, did any of us, you have Redwall, right? Yeah, because that's one that I was like, is that actually coming out this year? Who knows? We'll see. But it could benefit you, though, that you have a lot of games already out that have scores, because who knows, right? If there's going to even be enough games of quality to fill out our lists by the time you only have 2 spots open. I
gotta figure
like 6.
There's stuff we don't know about yet, that we don't even know it exists yet, that's going to get announced and still come out this year. I feel like there's a good chance for a couple of those, or stuff that we haven't heard about in so long or forgot about, and we didn't know it was coming out this year. But then once the summer rolls around, then I'll feel more comfortable filling out the roster.
Yeah, and poor Chris, I had to mention him. He has 5 games released with a total of 26 points, so he has 1 more game than me and less than half of my points. He obviously Suicide Squad is delayed, so that was a 0. Martha is Dead was a -1 for him. Lego Skywalker Saga got him 12 points, but Ghostwire got him 7, and Tiny Tina's got him 8. So we'll see what happens there. He still has Starfield on his board, which I think will get him huge points, and Gotham Knights too. So we'll see what happens there. That's been episode 244 of the Controlled Interest Gamecast. Thank you guys for listening. If you can head on over to YouTube, search our name, it'll come up, and subscribe for more videos so you never miss one. Hit the bell notification. Leave us a comment. What games are you playing lately? Are you done with Elden Ring? In terms of Twitter, you can follow us collectively at CTRLINT. It's Controlled Interest abbreviated. Dom can be found at OBDomKenobi. The O in OB is the number 0, not the letter O. I am at Jerrad Wyche. It's my name, JerradWyche. And listen to us on Spotify or any other podcast service of your choice. Leave a review if you do. It definitely helps us out. Other than that, we'll catch you guys next week when maybe one of us beats Elden Ring. Maybe we don't. We'll see. See you guys then. Bye.